Hello fellow lovers of the liminal and the weird, and welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. Today I'm going to be talking about the media that has been created from the Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham. So we're going to be looking at the movies and the TV series based on this book. Now this is something that, of course, in the past Jason would have done, and I feel like he is much better able to break down movies than I am. So please keep that in mind as I go, that really books are where my schooling and knowledge are in, and movies are for me just entertainment. So I don't break them down, I feel, to such a level as Jason would be able to. So for that I apologize. But I felt like I couldn't talk about the Midwich Cuckoos by John Wyndham without talking about all the films that have been made about this particular story. And I think that the reason that there are so many films is because the story is so good. I also think that it has not yet been put to film perfectly. It just hasn't, and I think that's why it keeps getting remade, and I hope it gets remade again. But we'll see what happens in the future. I'm sure it will be. So let's start with the 1960 film, which was the film that changed the name of the story from the Midwich Cuckoos to Village of the Damned. So Village of the Damned is a British horror movie that was directed by Wolf Riehle, and it was made in 1960. So 3 years after Midwich Cuckoos was released, this film, I got a hold of my mom and asked if she wanted to binge these with me, and she did, which was a lot of fun. And this one, of course, is dated. It came out in 1960, the movie itself did, but it did an incredible job. I really enjoyed watching this one. The translation from text to screen is difficult. It's only an hour and a half, an hour 40 minutes. I think it's an hour and a half long. So they had to rush through things quickly. But a lot of the iconic moments in the book were in this movie version. My mom and I had a great time watching this, talking about movies in the 60s versus movies now, and the fact that when they made the children's eyes glow, the way that they had to do it was they would freeze frame. So the kids would be moving, and then suddenly they would freeze, and then they would use effects on the eyes. They couldn't actually put the effects on the kids' eyes while the film was moving. But I feel like this one really tried to capture the heart of the original story, and it did a pretty good job doing that. After this film, they released, I think they were trying to make a film in the 80s, and that one was never produced. It didn't work out. But in 1995, John Carpenter remade the original movie, and we have another Village of the Damned. And this one was fun. It added, John Carpenter obviously had his fingerprints on it, and there was a lot of stuff added. One of the kids is stillborn or not, I can't tell, but the kid is taken away and they perform you want to come up here? You want to come up here? So she takes it away and dissects this baby that is stillborn or survives, we're not sure. John Carpenter also adds the concept that one of the children is individualistic more than the others and is separated from the bunch, and eventually, when all the kids are killed at the end, is spared, which opens it up to a second one. This one had some real intense moments, and I think that's thanks to John Carpenter. For instance, when everybody passes out, there's a guy that's grilling hot dogs, and the guy passes out onto the barbecue and just basically is burnt the whole time that they're asleep. So when everybody wakes up, he's just charred. The end where all the police show up and the children make the police fight. I think John Carpenter had a lot of fun with this. but I don't think it captures the seriousness of the text. It's a enjoyable watch. It's fun. The special effects are fun, but it almost seems to not take itself as seriously. It seems to be kitsch in places, which is why I was really glad that there was a TV series done in 2022, which I think that this new way of making like season-long shows based on books is a great way to go. Unfortunately, I wasn't a huge fan of the 2022 TV series. This one was directed by Alice Troughton, Jennifer Perot, and Borkor Sigborsson. Forgive me if I mispronounced any of those names. And this one, I feel like it took itself very seriously. And with the time that it had, I feel like it could have really done a great job of retelling this novel, but adding in all the huge moral philosophical questions that John Wyndham included in this text. Unfortunately, I feel like the writers added in so much stuff that by the end it really had nothing to do with the book. It was kind of a mess to me. By the end, there was so much going on, and I, for some odd reason, we watched the miniseries first, and then we watched the 1960s one, and then we watched the 1995 John Carpenter one. So I didn't realize that the miniseries was actually adapting all the movies as well as the book. So all the changes that John Carpenter added, that's not true, not all of them. Some of the changes that John Carpenter added were included in the miniseries that had nothing to do with the book. And I just felt that the more they complicated the plot, the less weight it had in its statement of what everything was about. And I've already said this once about the book, and I think this is really important, and that is that every moment of this book is exactly the craziest thing that could happen. So as you're reading, it's so hard to put down because it's just blam, blam, blam. Whatever the weirdest possible happening you can think of is usually where the book goes. And I feel like this should be a show that has kind of the artistic power of a show like Lost. Like every episode, our jaws should have been on the floor because the material in the book is like that. And I just didn't feel like there was anything surprising in this show at all. And I don't mean changing the source. I mean the way that they filmed people falling down and the dome, all of that should be blowing our minds constantly. And it really didn't. I don't know if that's director choices. Like I said, talking about television is very difficult for me. I don't know if that's director choices or writer choices, but somehow I never really felt that the moments were shown in the most shocking and interesting ways that they could have been. So, in the long run, honestly, my favorite adaptation of this story is the 1961. I feel like that one was the closest to what John Wyndham wanted in his book, and really, out of all of them, considered the heart of what was trying to be said. It was fun binging all these with my mom. I learned interesting stuff when we were watching the 1960s one. I said at one point, boy, this would be so scary for you to watch in 1960. And I said, because you'd be 7. And she said, well, the weirdest thing would be having a TV at that age. Which kind of shocked me because I didn't realize that my mom just didn't have TV her whole life. Apparently they didn't get TV until she was a teenager, and she told a funny story that her mom told her and her sister that their uncle, and then there was some name she'd never heard, was coming over, so they had to clean the whole house. So they spent the whole day cleaning the house. And the uncle that came over was actually just the person that ran the general store in town, and he delivered their TV. And she talked about how amazing that is. And that's very, very crazy for me to think about because I, of course, grew up with TV all around me. I guess it's like VCRs. I remember when we got our first VCR and how mind-blowing that was. That's what TV was like to my mom. So yeah, it was a fun experience. But in the end, I think the most fun we had was with the 60s one. I really do. I would love to see this retold with somebody that... And I don't mind character changes or anything like that, but if they could tackle the same philosophical moral questions that John Wyndham did in this book, I think it would be absolutely amazing. It would be so much fun. And if they could do it in an artistic way that kind of mimicked the sense that this book had of constantly having the most interesting thing happen, surprise after surprise, I would really like to see that. I just don't think this book has been done justice with movies, and I think that we're in a time when it really could be, and unfortunately somebody already attempted it, and I don't feel they did a great job. But because of that attempt, I think most people will consider this already redone recently, so I doubt it will get another redo for quite a while. All right. Thank you for putting up with me talking about movies. It's not what I do best, but I did feel like if I was going to talk about the Midwich Cuckoos, I had to talk about the television and movie adaptations that have been done on it. All right. Thank you for watching this to the end. If you liked it, please click like. And if you like this kind of content, please subscribe because I'll be making a lot more of it in the future. Thank you so much for watching.